Hey, let's try this again. uh, Checking the audio. Yep. Yeah, I've been talking for 3 minutes now with no audio, so we'll try this again. Um, I'm Zachariah with the Scarlet Chess Club. We're in the third and final stage of the uh, Scarlet Chess Club Super Series for 2023 through 2024. We'll probably be doing this again in about a year. This one has been a really interesting learning experience. Shout out to Seshaline Singh and Clint Stewart, who kind of organized what the stages would be and put all this together. It's the first time we've done a three-stage, partial online, partial over the board event, and we've been really thrilled to put all this on. You need a piece of paper? That's not mine, so I can't authorize it, but I'm sure if you can find a blank piece of paper, he won't complain. One of our contestants for the second match. This is Josh Pruitt coming in and hassling the organizers already. What else is new? Okay. Match one is going to be Clint Stewart versus Lucas Christensen, who's here for match one. He was actually coming to sort of view. Our first match was going to be Clint versus Craig Hilliard. Unfortunately, Craig was not able to make it today, so we had a last minute sub in. Fortunately, Lucas was planning to be on site and watch the games anyway. So, because he was the next runner up in the previous stage, we were able to bring him in as one of the semifinalists. So, thanks to Lucas and his father for being here today. Yeah, we've got. I explained the stages before, but I think that was when the mic was off. So let me go back over that. We had the. Are they playing it? Okay. Well, let's switch to the games real quick. See if we can take a quick peek at what they're. All right. I may need to refresh my screen. Doesn't look like any moves have been played yet here. So while I wait for this to update or find out if it's a technical issue, yeah, we had the first stage, which was the arenas, which was online. The second stage, we did another online elimination. We had six contestants or six players, and uh, we came out with four there. And so we have the final four that are in this stage. And this stage is the only one that is USCF rated, and because of that, we're doing it over the board live in the other room. Still no update on the board. I'm going to pop back out to the overall event. Hit a Control F5. And then go back into the game. We have our DGT board set up to track moves live, but technology doesn't always work. And sometimes the technologist doesn't always work. Sometimes it's a computer problem. Sometimes it's a person problem. I'm going to go ahead and mute this while we figure out what's going on. But yeah, this is going to be going on all day. Sometimes people will be talking, sometimes they won't. Uh, I'll be here for the first stage, and then I'm going to go play for the second stage. Oh, we've got updates coming in now. Something must have changed. With an opening I'm not really familiar with. Excellent. All right, can I pop this out? Turn off the feedback. So A4, yeah, just striking out on the edge. Clint Stewart going really out of book, or at least out of his normal play style against Lucas Christensen. Lucas responding a little bit more normally. E5, taking control of the center if white doesn't want it. B3, knight c6, bishop b2. So he's got the Fianchetto bishop. So he will chip away at the center from the sides, kind of a modern, hyper modern type opening. Looks like he wants to just stretch the A4 or that A pawn out as far as he can. Plant is an aggressive player, and some of his most notable games have wound up with pawns extremely advanced quite early. In the middle of the game, pawn 6 to 7 rank is not unusual for Clint. They typically are the C pawn or the F pawn, so going on the edge is a little bit unusual. Should make for a very interesting game, though. A little bit more normal play from Lucas. Just bringing more stuff out to the center. Supported. Yeah, see, there we go. Clinton pushing the A5. He wants to get that pawn as far as he can, put the squeeze on black, and possibly ending up with threats of promotion at some point in the early middle game or late middle game. Lucas responding with bishop e7, continuing to develop. He wants to castle kingside so that he can start responding to this queenside push by Clint. But he does go ahead and push his b6 pawn, or push his pawn to b6, not allowing a capture there, sort of trapping the. Is that not where we are?
That is that we would have.
Oh, we have the okay, yeah. Yeah, we have 3 different things that we can show here on the screen, and I'm still familiarizing myself with which ones are which. You see the players there on the bottom right of the screen, Clint on the right, Lucas on the left. They're continuing to play quite quickly. They have plenty of time, over 20 minutes each. So we're already reaching the end of the opening. Lucas brings back his bishop to protect his knight. Much better the bishop than the queen because the knight is still just pinned. But it's a kind of a step backwards in development. Whereas white can just cancel kingside safely now if he wants, or start pushing other pawns, maybe c3, or even bring the rook out to a4 would be an idea to have that horizontal play. Definitely an unusual opening. No Sicilians here. No Kings Indians. Just push the pieces and fight it out. You see the eval bar gives white a 1 point advantage. That's probably mainly due to the space advantage here. White does have way more room on the board, particularly on the queen side. So he strikes out with d4, finally challenging the center. White could just push e4 and try to knock out the knight, but instead he goes ahead and captures. I guess he's calculated it out. If white captures back with the bishop and knight takes, then knight takes, bishop on b5, knight takes bishop, or yeah, knight bishop b5. It's pretty even trade. The bloodbath very early in the game. Do both players want to do that? I don't know. White also has this idea of just letting the pawn be. If black moves the pawn forward or captures on e3, then that phantom bishop is looking at g7. Very dangerous for black to let the sniper come in for the rook or open up the e side because black has not castled yet. Neither side has castled yet, actually. So this game is definitely more about the attacks than the defense. White does capture. And whatever center control that black had is pretty much disappeared now. Instead of recapturing, black brings up the knight to e5, threatening the bishop immediately and free up some of this constraint that he's under. Full disclosure, I'm only rated about 1300, so you're going to only get about 1300 level commentary. If you have comments of your own you'd like to make about the game, come into the stream. Definitely happy to get other people's perspectives about this. And such things here as well. If you notice anything that I don't. Oh, sure.
Interesting how actually, like, I think that gets like white gets a 1.8 advantage, and then the bar didn't actually move up pretty quickly. It took some time before it moved, so it seems like it is a critical moment. The question is, what exactly has black missed here? One idea is that on g7, I think, is really weak with that bishop on b2 just eyeing that pawn. And the two pieces that are in the middle are really like fragile in nature, so they can move really quickly. The question then basically becomes, where exactly do you play? So let's actually let's jump back to the move. So that's definitely a miss as our children compass. So let's run the analysis and see what we could have played here. So after d4, e takes d, knight takes, and then knight e5. What exactly? So what exactly is the move here, which I need to find out. Is that you take? Is that you take after knight e5? Yeah, so you take. So after knight e5, so you take the bishop, and then you have to take. What if you take with the knight? Or you take with the knight and then you go knight f6, knight c6, is it? Knight c6 and you. So you have to take with the queen. So let's go back a couple moves and then take with the queen there. So after you take, yep, then you take with the queen, and then you have to just castle, and you're better because you can still play f4 and some sort of ideas, right? I think after that. Yep. So that g7 pawn is really weak, and let's say you play knight f6, white gets some sort of advantage. That was definitely a miss, my opinion, and it was rewarded. So also, like situation.
So there was a capture. Black's finally looking to be able to castle. I think it's castle.
So for all this, I think white still has that advantage because you still can just castle and go like c4 as we saw in the previous games. That is still a possibility. And this was again an inaccuracy. I think both the players are like moving really quickly. Although Clint has 16 minutes on clock, so he's contrary to how he usually plays. He's actually used up more time than his opponent. Uh, but he has the advantage to show for the 7-ish less minutes than his opponent. So conventional move here would just like yes be like they just castle and be okay. But let's see. So it's fairly equal. Not a lot of advantage to actually brag about, right? Although I think the bishop on e7 is still like a glorified pawn. It's not doing a lot, whereas the bishop on b2 has this higher quality, and that is where the differential advantage comes from. And a backwards knight move,
You know,
which I
obviously trying to reposition to c5.
don't understand because that knight has moved from c6 to e5 and then back to d7. It has like in at least three times, if not more.
And he wants to keep at least one knight uh, position to be covering these squares because he doesn't want
The
white's
queen,
king coming in.
queen to come in. Very, very, very true. Actually. And oh, can you play knight c6 and just trade off that bishop? Because that bishop is the one that is like keeping that knight.
So, there.
And at this one,
I don't think he wants to kill this bishop
I
though because
don't,
it is so poorly placed, like you said.
right. But at this one, I don't even want to exchange. I think I'm just happy with like tying down your pieces. And I'm like, hold on, let's actually show this to our viewers. So knight on c6 is actually really, really better. So what we try to put is the knight on c6, and then you have to move the queen to e8. And your pieces are tied down, and I think I can start with queen f3 of some sort. Uh, I'm not sure. I think there's another idea that I kind of want to test out, which is rook a4, which seems likely for the moves. At some point, you can just put the rook out and you can bring the rook from there because that rook becomes really active. And you do not have to go through the orthodox channels, which is going through rook d1 and rook e1, and both of your rooks are actually competing for the same open file.
Black has no control over or any white squares really. Uh, with his white bishop gone, he has these currently because of the knight. How long will that last? So he did play the c5 like we thought.
Right, and queen f3 also has been played. So for knight e d7, queen f3, and knight c5. But what exactly is that knight doing there? That's the question. It's just hitting empty squares. It's like shooting into thin air with this nothing to be contested. I mean, the e4 square is maybe a possibility.
Maybe he's expecting a pawn push, deploy the knight there to go after the bishop that we talked about being so strong. But that's relying on your opponent to do exactly what you want them to do. That doesn't typically happen.
Very true. I think I'm also liking the idea of just knight f5 at this point. Uh, Again, like those little dual threats of like taking with g7 after queen g3, and then also on h6 if you get queen g3. So one of those ideas definitely possible.
I really should have brought the mouse to make the pointing a little bit easier. It's hard to make the lines with the trackpad.
I think I left my mouse at home.
We'll squeak by without them.
Nice. Right. So has a move has been made. Can you refresh?
Oh, several moves.
So b4 has been played.
Kicking the knight, just making it move some more while white can calmly develop.
And he goes knight c6.
Finally goes for there. The queen has more space to go now, so she's not forced to e8. So she goes d7.
I don't like knight takes
Breaks
e7 that
captures.
much. I could have actually.
So
So
white's maybe just making pawn weaknesses here.
right, and he wants to probably double up the pawn. Then
Yeah.
he thinks that he can probably win the end game. My idea would have been to not take knight takes e7 because my knight on c6 is really happy. So let's go back a couple of moves to be organized. So
Maybe b5.
I mean, that knight is still supported by the queen. b5 is good. I kind of like it.
It does allow the knight to come back to where it was, but then that would just be another knight move.
And which also does nothing. And what I want to do is I want to actually yes play b5 and then so let's maybe draw that arrow or something, and then I want to like put
No.
so I want to put a knight on b3 and then if he moves this knight I actually want to put the knight on d4 then this knight goes here.
It's watching.
I mean,
Oh, just arrows. I see.
yes.
Yeah.
So
So
my idea is to basically put the knight on d4, and I'm really happy with how my knight made the position. And at any moment, let's say that rook moves somehow, or you put the bishop on the last rank, I can move the knight on c6 and I threaten the a8 rook also. And then rook's coming to a4. My bishop's already happy. My other rook is coming to d1, and then I can also start like pushing like e4. I'm sorry, e4, e5. Okay, so a couple of moves have been made. Knight takes e7, queen takes e7,
so
bishop
like we thought,
f6.
trading everything off, and now like has the double pawns.
And white has, I think, rook activity also.
Mhm.
So that 1.4 advantage that we see on the screen, most of it comes from the spatial, and I think also the pawn advantage. Then also like the double pawns, I think that definitely is a part. And he played knight f3, allowing b5. So the c2 pawn is basically backward, and
That would be a great place for one of the rooks to come in and support the pawn push.
right, I think that is very likely uh, to be played, and I think I would actually put both the rooks like, c1 and d1, and then like, try and like isolate the d6 pawn at some point.
Because that would be black's backward pawn.
So rook d1
Yeah.
as we thought, game's fairly even. I mean, it can still go either ways, and a 10-minute deficit on the clock with not a lot of advantage to show for playing anymore. This seems to be going fairly okay.
Black can put his rook on b6
And
to cover that pawn, blocking white's a pawn or a rook for a while.
right, the question basically then becomes what exactly do you do about it? So one of the ideas is to somehow get a knight on d5, which will take 4 moves. So the knight is probably going to take that route. It's just going to find this whole knight d4, knight e2, knight c3, and then knight d5. Uh, and I think rook a6 is just a good enough move.
About this goes too far. That's why I hate trackpads. But yeah, pawn b5, capture, capture.
That was probably the idea. And then you could actually play knight f5. I'm not sure.
Or knight b7 or c7. It's a good double attack on the white pawn.
That I think I would like to give that up. It's anyway, what do you call it? Like a problem for me. So I would like to give that up for I can snag another pawn.
But the client want to give it. He loves his advanced pawns.
But that is another that is another big good question that we have. Uh, Right, so that definitely seems interesting. And Clint did play Rook A5 and C6 has been played.
Lucas did not go all the way to the C5 though. He just brought in C6.
And,
Wow.
and that's just a lost pawn. And I think that it's that Rook's gonna have a so I think the engine is not being able to make up its mind about the amount of advantage it has because that was the natural capture, and it still gives plus 2.9 around that, which is very interesting.
So at this point, it's advantageous for black to start developing his king to be a more active piece, whereas white still has some pawn play he can do before he starts moving his king. That said, I don't know Luke's play style quite as well as I know Clint's, so take everything with a grain of salt.
Because now on
Rook on the
this,
seventh rank. Ooh, nothing more dangerous.
but the only concerns I have with like its position is that the A5 rook.
Yeah, it's a little. So a typical play here, if you well, I was going to say if you don't trade, but white goes ahead and trades. Typically, you could also get a check in on E8 before the rook back to safety.
Right, I would actually put my rook on D6, and I'd be like, "Hey, I ask you the question. I have the control of the open file,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to defend."
How long can you breathe underwater?
Pretty much that, and then I can start playing like F3, E4, and then I can start playing like King F2, E3, and stuff. Again, I think a little passive or cautious play by Clint because he has the advantage on the king side, which is a pawn. Uh, and the thing is, if the pawns on the queen side get exchanged, suddenly that's a draw. So 4v3 on the king side.
He's really looking for Indian tactics. Like before that king move, perhaps something like if instead of king e6, click on pawn f5, then I would have c4, threatening like if b takes e, then rook is finally free to take the e pawn. But that's not possible now because the king's, like I said, getting more active, getting involved in the actual pushing back on the space constraints that he's had all game.
And this also makes me wonder, like, what exactly are we planning? Like, what exactly is the idea for white? Like, what's the winning strategy? So white
He has to
really
be
has
looking at his G and H pawns because everything black has is now going to the queen side. So where they're strong, flip to the other side.
So the question is, do you want to play like king e2, king e3, and then play f4, or do you want to go f3, king f2, king g3, and then just say that I know that my king side is pretty solid. And see, here's another thing that I kind of want to draw. So these okay, you see this, the king has no entry points, right? Which basically means no matter how hard you try, it's very difficult to come in, which I think he can now. But the white king gets to this pawn, I think, quicker than you get to this pawn because I just defend it and then I just like, keep moving around here. I think. But the question again then basically becomes what's the move to be played here? This is probably like a critical moment again because if you take, I think suddenly all of your uh, play vanishes. But instead, if I just play c3, I think
Mm-hmm.
you take and I take, and then now it's not just your rook, not just my rook, but your rook is also like stranded to the defense of the pawn. So both of our rooks are stranded on those exact same squares, like in any time. And he does take, which I do not like that much.
So obviously king capture back. Yeah, in eval bar didn't like it at all because to the draw now.
Right, and with a 12-minute deficit, and a very good game. Didn't really has to put something impressive out here. He plays rook a3.
Black does have to be careful not to just go rook chasing because the rook was kind of constrained before, but if you go chasing it, that gives it the time it needs to move around to better squares.
Sure, and then I think okay, so I like how he's asking questions to White's like position, practically like asking that I have a centralized king that you can maybe check, but there's no good checks, and even if you have a good check, I'll just retreat to the square that I was actually at, and if you're trying to like take like pieces, so he basically forced the f3,
Yes.
and now there's no rook h3 like attacking the h6 pawn. That, like the original idea that I alluded to before, which was to like actually give the h6 pawn for the h3, and then we have a pawn race. This is very equivalent game because that's almost not to anywhere.
Well, I mean, White can maneuver his king, f to f2, and then circle around to the h file, try to get in that way from the side. But it's a bit of a long trip.
Right. So yes, but also then you're moving away from the defense of the c2 pawn, and black will team up really quickly. The question is, what do you play here? Because you can play rook b3, trade the a6 pawn for the b4 pawn, but then black has an outside passer.
Move rook a4, prevent the pawn from moving for at least one move.
But then king c3, I think is another thing that can happen. Pushing back king d1, and it is, if not difficult, it is definitely interesting at that point. Well, I think no, but rook a4, king c3, king d1, king d6, king c, king c, yeah, and go king c1, and then you go rook d2. But what do you find there then? So do you want to put this on the board maybe? So go rook a4, rook a4,
Yeah, a4.
and then king c3, king d1, and then rook d6 check. No,
d6?
rook d6, black's move.
Oh, blah, blah, blah.
And then king c1,
Mhm.
I think, and rook d2. Okay, so there was something else here. There was definitely something else. The Mar didn't like it a couple of moves ago. So let's go back. Like, let's go back like before we played rook d6. So d1 is where we have to find something. Definitely something here. What is it? We don't have a bunch of moves to be playing.
No,
Oh, is it
b3
king
maybe?
b2? B3 exchanges. Like, I think it's king. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god! You're taking away the c1 square basically from the king, and then you were still asking rook d6, rook d4. So rook d6, and
Well,
then you play something, right? So well, something like g3 or h3 or something like that. That's all. I don't know.
I don't know about like a random move is probably not ideal. You want to be able to block the check, get the rook away from the king. Just kind
Okay, but yeah, you are blocking the check now. So
of go rook
the move.
d6.
No, rook d6. Then there's rook d5 now. So we have to find out. Is it rook c6? Okay, so not rook c6. There's definitely something else here. I just don't remember what it is. To push the pawn? No. What does the engine say after rook a5? It says rook d6. Oh, and then you take the a6 pawn. So you basically lose one or the other. So you lose either the a6 pawn or you lose the pawn. That is interesting.
Black's got a 2-point advantage here, but
I
back to
think.
the actual game.
Yep. Let's go back to the.
Oh,
I think he
even
has found a
here.
great move with king c2. So we're going in the same direction actually. So okay.
Oh, but he played some one-off move. Why did he not capture the pawn? Oh, because he wants to preserve that pawn. Huh. Get the lines off. Playing quite
G3,
quickly again.
HG, king G. Yes, so the problem with this whole situation is that you can go king g4, king f5 and threaten, but I just go okay, one rook h1, and I'm like, before you take my f6 pawn, I actually reach your h4 pawn. So, and then if you actually like choose, because I can always give a check on g1, and then if you go to like h5, I just put the rook on g1 and hold your king captive. So the king stays on h file, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I have all the time in the world for h4, no, to a4, a5, a6. But the king, so since the king cannot escape the g file, it becomes really difficult. So if he goes rook a1, I think he has to go king g2. Uh,
Yeah, what he does.
so
Great find by Lucas, who has now that he's no longer constrained, his pieces are all over the board. He's punishing White for just trading everything down. So at this point, Black's plan would probably be make sure his rook can get to h1, but also advances a pawn and start putting the squeeze on the white rook and threatening pretty much from the zone. Yeah.
when it's real bad because it's not just that. You also after you play king g2, I have rook a2 or rook c1, like both of those, and then suddenly it's really impossible to prevent like taking, like losing that pawn. So either you lose c2 or you lose h1. So one of those pawns are definitely lost. This seems to be difficult, and now you can see that Clint very low on time, 16 minutes uh, deficit, almost 2 minutes on the clock.
And Clint can play quickly. He's not going to lose on time. Most likely, he can play. He can blitz out moves in a second. But he needs the time to think.
It's found rook a3. H1, king g4.
Russian school of chess means you get some checks in first, right?
Possibly, but okay, a5. So now the pawn has basically started going down the board, and since the a file is like the first rank is covered, and most of the a file is also covered. Like the only place you can put, if you could put your rook, you could put it on a2, which I don't see how white does it. And that rook practically has no scope. I
Not
think
without giving up the c pawn.
so. The only idea maybe is to go rook d3, rook d8, and then start checking from behind. But how far can you go? Because the king basically hides on c1 at some point. Or in fact, even on b3, like once it gets to like c3, b2, there's no way to check the king.
Just checking chat real quick. All right. Oh wow! What a huge move! Huge blunder.
So he played f4. It takes back. So there is definitely
Yeah. So
some.
there's now a little bit more room for getting some sideline checks. But also, I think he's got another pawn he can push.
It's an inaccuracy, but he has a minute on the clock, which is what's giving him the goosebumps. Like if there's a minute on the clock, and he has to find the right move. And I think he finds rook h3. And now if you take, I just take, and we queen at the same time. And no matter what it is, it's equal because now I just push the pawn after I take back, right?
Mhm.
So he takes back. And with the
But even if they both queen, black has the queen coming in here with the skewer.
but white queens first.
Oh.
I think this might go the other way really quick because you go h6, and then if you go f2, I can just go g2, and you cannot queen quicker than that. So here you have to find a move here. I think king c3 is no, I'm not sure. I don't know. But that if king g2, right? It's lost because now king g2, and suddenly I can go h7 h8, and you cannot. He had to play a4 a3 a2. Instead, he pushed the wrong pawn. Oh no, not like this. No. Right, and the problem is that like I queen, and then I also take the f6 pawn before you get to a1, and then my queen also eyes the a1 square, and even if you queen, I just take it, and I have the e pawn. It takes, you just take f2, and oh my lands, what a save! What a save! Is that it? Is that it? Have they resigned? Has resigned? I'm not sure. Time's still running down.
Well, with under a minute, the TD might want to, be on site to.
I might actually go.
Yeah, that was quite a turnaround. White had the space advantage throughout most of the game. Took like a while to break free and create some threats on the A file. Very interesting that he was able to use the A file to. Lucas was able to use the A file to his advantage for quite a while, and that was what White used to strike out to begin with. But yeah, there came a point where just one wrong move, one mistake, let black or let white kind of recover and have his A pawn be just a little bit stronger. So there's some discussion occurring in the playing hall camera, probably talking about the game. Bring back the analysis board. Let's take a look at where everything kind of turned around. So White looks like he's trying to force this move. He must have calculated that it would be incorrect for Black to take here, which Black did. What was the optimal move here then? Just a4 probably. I'll go ahead and choose a little bit and use the lines. Yeah, a4, because if White moves there, then it's just locked down and you continue along with your plan. And if White takes, then it's still locked down, and White can do nothing to prevent the A pawn from queen. He threatens or offers a trade, trying to force it. So Clint definitely did some calculation here, figuring out is the best way to take advantage of that blunder. Again here, what's the best threat? The line here is a4, giving away the rook. I yeah, I don't see how that plays out. Hmm, I think the board's lying to me. Four. He takes f4. Rook h3. Hmm. All right. I'll take a little break from this game. And see you again when the next game starts. We're still on the first match, the first semifinal match. So Clint and Lucas have one more game to go, at least. If uh, Lucas wins the next game, they'll go to an Armageddon third game. We'll see what happens. Hey, gonna try this again with a mic, which I keep forgetting. We're back with game two of the first match. Lucas and Clint again. This time with Lucas is white and Clint Stewart is black. Much more normal game. No A4 here. So it was E4, A6, D4. A little bit of a transposition into a Sicilian. White's not interested in trading or just developing. He wants to continue pushing. Go ahead and take the eval bar off for just a second. Let them get through the fireworks of the opening. Oh, the commentary studio camera does not appear to be working. One second. My browser crashed or what?
Is your phone connected? Has enough charge?
Discharge.
Right. So we still stream, like we're still there. I'll commentate. Doesn't matter.
It's on.
Usual stuff. I think. Again, a very interesting but a peculiar choice, and almost played ace and went for knight off, and then he's off. So this seems like a knight off line, but you get to play c5, b5, and you're really happy, and you haven't actually lost that c pawn. Instead, you lost that e pawn. Um, correct, of course, pace, but only a little. The question is again with this, where do you want to put your dark squared bishop for black, and then also where do you get to put your light squared bishop, and then because mostly the c6 square is taken from the knight, so where exactly does that knight end up? I think we're back. We are back. Yes, we're back in full force. Welcome back, Zachariah.
Thank you.
I also got you some
Breakfast.
Oreos and
Thanks.
bites. Yeah. So, and bishop f4, which is definitely interesting.
Sure. I mean, attack the
Eval. Oh, you removed the eval also.
yeah, at least for the first 10 moves, because I feel like it's just going to be driven all over the place and they're playing quickly. Once again, uh, the roles have reversed, but once again, like white's waiting for black to castle before they castle. Seems like it's pretty normal in chess. Both sides kind of castle at the same time pretty frequently.
Yes, I think we should do some sort of a statistical analysis on when do the sides castle. I feel like there's an interesting idea. Not an interesting idea, but like, where do I want my light square bishop to go? Is it b7? Is it like f5, g4? I don't know. Because I really want the d7 square for the knight. The question is, do I put the knight on d7 first, and then like I think I want the bishop, or do I want to like actually like play the bishop first? So that is one question.
Yeah, the general rule is move knights first and then bishops, but it's not always the case. And bishop g4 is more okay in the very beginning, but it's kind of less useful now because that knight on f3 is already protected by the white's bishop, so you don't want to just give white more activity with the pieces he's developed.
Right, and with knight d7, he actually wants to go to the f5, which is, for the lack of a better word, interesting, if not nothing else.
But that's if he does it, he does seem to be, attacking that d5 pawn. He may want to put his bishop on b7, attack it a couple of times, see if he can get it off the board and regain some center control.
Right. And e4 here, which is, I guess, beautiful, I guess. I'm not sure.
It's dangerous because if Black allows that pawn to capture on b5, then how does he capture back
Right.
without hanging the rook? I guess we could put the eval bar back on.
You have to take, yes, is one thing, right? Because if you play bishop something some sort of bishop d7 move, you just take, and then once the bishop takes back, you take with the e2 bishop, and you cannot take back. And you have to play like either king f8 or something, because if you put the knight in the middle, I'll actually go on to take
You could just go
on
bishop
a6.
b7 though. Allow the capture, take the capture. You get he gives the check, but he's no longer hanging the rook.
Well, you get 2 pawns for a pawn, right?
Yeah.
Plus there's a check, so which is, I don't know. I mean, you need to show something for that pawn. Oh, he plays b4.
Pushes it forward.
Again, a minimalistic point to advantage that I think White gets on the first move, White still securing it, not losing it completely. Again, these engines are also really low depth and really don't see too far off, but it's still nice.
Takes a chance with that square freed up now to put the bishop in a slightly more outstretched position, eyeing that f7 pawn, and also protecting the d5.
And now if I actually put my bishop on b7, I can be asking questions. I'm practically like holding down two of your major pieces, which is one of those, that light squared bishop that like White really likes Sicilians, and also your queen down to like protect the d5 pawn. And if you want to free your bishop, you'll have to play like some sort of weird move, bishop a2, and then you have to play c4. Which is if I allow you to, because at some point I'm also bound to get like queen c7, and I can actually go on and play c4 if you move that bishop away from that square. So I do not like this move much. I mean, it's just running the bishop into a pawn. It's like you have a loose cannon, but you have a shut door behind it, so it's bound to strike you back. That both and both of them castle at the same time, pretty much in the same move or one move. Than that.
Castling sometimes feels like a formality, so it's just kind of an agreement to do it at the same time. A lot of games.
But I learned otherwise that if you actually play like do not castle, like I think my game against Holmes, and I was not actually castle, and I just died in the middle game, and he was just standing right in the middle of the battlefield, and those arrows flying out.
It's a formality you want to be able to complete.
More or less like that formality that you want to be able to complete.
Black does have that backward pawn on d6. It is under attack once. Black's probably going to be looking at that for the next 10 moves, just wondering if that's something he can chip away at long term.
Right. You're thinking something like 95. Like, I don't like 94 again because I can't, like, black can always play f5. So I want to put my knight on like c4, which is another square that the bishop is taking away. That bishop is hexed. It's like a glorified pawn at this point.
He may pull back to a2 at some point.
Yes. And then how do we think about like queen c7? Because I want to go c4, b3.
It's plausible, but
But also there's
I don't
always
know that it
c
gives
takes
you.
b4, right?
I don't know that it gives black enough kind of freedom. Probably the next few moves we'll see rookie on rookie 8, just because they both want to challenge for the open. Oh,
Right. And Klim taking his time to think. I think he's not making the same mistake as he did last time. I mean, he did still think a lot, but I think he just underestimated his opponent at some point, or it was probably just
we are at a 6-minute deficit now in the first, you know, 12.
Taking a time to think, almost like averaging a minute per move, which is like highly unlikely for him, but it's probably going on for a long thing.
The average game is what, 40 moves, or is it longer now?
We should, I think, still for the most. And instantaneous 22. See, I don't like this because you're taking away the squares from a
Hmm.
knight. Your knight is again like
Where does
has
that B knight go?
almost nowhere. I don't see any.
Is he just going to immediately reposition from
Oh,
E3? Or?
I don't know. I think he's trying to go bishop h6. That
Oh,
seems
sure,
to be the
sure.
more threat. Like, but again, like I just can't play knight f5, and I'm like, show me what you have for queen
Well,
d2.
he would probably still capture, right? You got to capture bishop on G7, knight captures back. And it, it's an equal trade of material, but now the castle queen there is a little bit weaker. He no longer has the black square bishop. The queen has freedom to jump up to f4, g5, because the knight is not covering those squares anymore. Or I guess it never was, but I don't know. Eval bar is definitely favoring black a little bit here, and it probably is because white's just a little bit constrained with where he can put his pieces, at least for the next few moves.
So one thing that I felt that you should do when you're like constrained is just trade so that you get more pieces off the board and you
Mhm.
free up more squares. And I really like absolutely love the bishop on g7. It looks like it's running into a pawn chain, but that pawn chain is brittle. Like that pawn is so brittle that you can actually start hacking on that c3 pawn right away. You just don't want to do it because it denies the knight in the tempo. Instead, you want him to take on b4, and certainly that b2 pawn is so scrumptious. And I think once you take back with the A or on any of those, I think more very likely on that pawn chain from b6 to b4 is just fantastic for black. It takes away so many nice squares, and then that bishop just running it, the light squared bishop of white running it into its own pawn isn't really happy. So I think the evaluation bar actually also shows the freezing of the white pieces.
It's continuing to take a massively long time here to decide what he wants to do. It's been 2 minutes on one move.
It's played knight f5, which seems to be the move to be played.
Keeping white from bringing the bishop into h6 like he probably wanted. But that's about all that it accomplishes, because it doesn't have anywhere else that it can currently strike unless something happens with the pawns on the B and C files. It does allow the queen to come out, but
So let's say I'm white. What do I want to play? One move that I kind of like is just bishop g5. Maybe asking the question again. What exactly do you have in there? But he goes bishop d3.
this is the
Bishop,
second time in this match that Lucas has been forced to pull back his light square bishop from where he first played it. So that's the third move for the white bishop in this game alone. So in terms of move efficiency, that's something that white needs to, I guess, be working on.
and just temporarily that d5 pawn is without a defender. But I also don't see a place to like attack it. So, and even if you attack it, I think you cannot take it because bishop d5 is still bishop f5 is still very strong.
And if you only attack it once, white can even allow it to be captured with a discovered recapture using
Right,
that bishop.
and I think c4 is a very strong move coming in from white, and which resolves, if not all, most of the problems for black. I'm sorry, for white. And then I think at some point he has to go. Rook a2, b3, but he has to stop b3 and be played. For,
Black does have a little bit more space, but if I can lock it in place now, it'll be uncomfortable, but not critical. You can survive a long time with things locked in place.
right. Is true.
And he does have nearly 10 minutes of time advantage now.
I think like White can use this time to formulate like certain plan that like he definitely can use over time. So one of my ideas would be to like exchange and then ask the question like, do you want to take with the A pawn or the C pawn? Because if I take the C pawn, I'm okay moving my queen to like let's say over to E2 or C2, and then I can put knight on D2, and then my rooks are protected.
You have to be careful though, because if you do move, if he does take with that c pawn, then the
So
bishop is
is
still.
Mr. Blended G5? What do you have? Oh no,
Oh yeah,
but you take on D3 with check.
right.
So that's not the. There's something else. There's definitely something else. What has?
He's going for it, and the eval bar did not budge. So that there.
I did it.
Okay. There's a
So
little bit of delay. I get more of this.
there's something else you have to find there. It's definitely something else.
So G takes is forced, and then probably what f6.
Queen e1, f6. Okay, maybe or just bishop f6. And then you get your bishop to h3 suddenly, and you're really happy, right? So you get bishop h6. So you play bishop f6, bishop h6, rook a8.
So going back a move or two, what was the white missed? So knight takes, which is almost forced. Like you can probably protect the knight, but with rook coming in on e8, it's just not worth.
Or you just take the pawn. The pawn hangs. So queen takes h4, and then you take the pawn.
Remove the defender. Okay, it was just deflection.
It was puzzle rush time. That that was all.
Clever.
And
With tempo too, because you get the rook under attack, and then you
right,
can just trade off the bishop for the knight.
if you want to, I mean, I would still like to keep that bishop.
All right, back to game as it is.
Back to our player view. And bishop h6 has been played. Well, I think black enjoys an advantage, and now he has like the 2 point advantage to show for the 10 deficit that he has. And this one, I think, just playing regular developing moves. I think bishop h3, knight d7, knight e5. That's chilling.
It is crazy that we're on move 17, and the only piece of blacks that's not on the back square still is that bishop.
Right. And the knight which has been exchanged. Apart from that, which was exchanged on the last.
We don't count dead pieces here.
And okay, bishop h2. There was definitely something else that could have been found, I guess. This definitely seems, if not difficult, constricting, right? For blacks like white's king, because the king cannot move. Like there has no escape squares with the double pawns. But okay, that is peculiar. So I think he has to take back with the king. That's- And
Well,
does rightly so.
they could both go for the
Exchange, but I don't like so. The problem with that is that, like, one takes first sometimes gets an extra tempo, right? Take a piece. So, see, I don't like this move, the bishop h3. I think though I said it before, is because now he gets the bishop f1 and suddenly then can become a pawn after bishop g2. But a pawn which does something, which is protecting its king. So
Sorry, you're losing me a little bit. Bishop f1 and then bishop g2.
no, my bishop, the white bishop on g2. So what I'm saying is that. So I'm not giving
Okay.
you a line. What I'm giving you is like the idea that I can just put white can just put his bishop on f1 and then g2, and that pawn that just go into g3 has that hole has been filled by the bishop,
I see. I see.
and it defends the king, and suddenly the king doesn't feel that stuck because you can always play king f1 now after bishop f1. Bishop f1, bishop g2 is just like a play, right? So that lot of advantage again is also portrayed by the bar because where exactly what exactly do you do? So the question probably will be that after you play bishop f1, bishop takes f1 or something, knight on e5 is threatening the f3 square. So you have to move a queen at some point and put the knight on d2 defending that f3 square. So there's a bunch of moves coming in, also little threats from black.
Hmm.
Bold and also mistake. So what exactly is the is it that you just play f5 and the rook has to go back?
I think so because the queen comes into g5 and it's game over.
I mean, not directly g5 because the queen on d2 is still there. But unless you play rook f4, and he misses it completely, and now I think rook h4 is it's rook h4. So that will be a royal fork. That will be a royal fork after knight takes f3, and he plays it. He completely misses that, and the engine is slow as ever to react, and just knight f3, losing the queen, and we should just expect handshakes really soon. That
Handshakes or
is
fistfights.
that is not what I wanted to. Oh, and handshakes and receive handshakes. I was not expecting it to end this way. Definitely not. Oh, man. And he missed it completely with f5. That f5 was missed. It was 94, 95 going tricks again, and then
So
away.
well done by Clint.
I think that was really nice, and we have a couple of. I think we can probably start the next round a little earlier if possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get my losses to Josh out of the way, and then we can have the Clint versus Josh spin up.
Well, no, we're not too eager to like run towards the results for the round that have not even started yet. But two beautiful games, I think, that started. My idea again at this point would be to like just like take a couple of steps back after like the first loss and like probably play with a little bit more time on the clock. But White had, I think, at some point an advantage. I just did not like Bishop C4. That caused a lot of problems, if not, you know, and a lot of decisive problems that Bishop C4 move. I think just pushing the pawn to C4 was probably much better. Sure, yeah, I'll be there. So, I'll let you take over.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm going to set up for my game. Yeah, we'll be right back.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I look very white though. Hello, everyone. I'm Clint. I'm the one played some questionable moves in these past few games, but we got it done, and that's all that matters, right? 1a6 is the best move. You should hire me as your coach because I'll teach you a 1a6. But here we go. The games are starting. Let's go with the first few moves. I'm trying to use the engine a lot. I'm going to try to look at this from a human point of view. So knight f3 comes from Josh. We see the wonderful, wonderful players. This game will probably be much higher quality than the last few, if I had to guess. Knight 3, g3, and then knight f6. Zach might go for g6, something symmetrical. He may go for a king's Indian versus whatever Josh's setup is. The thing with this knight 3, g3 setup is it's extremely flexible. So, you can put it over c5. Okay. c5 is very, very nice. I like c5. If you wait around and play bishop g2 and castles, like it's the full center, it's hard to pull off d4. It's hard to pull off d4. So usually, eventually, White will play this c4 move. Would be a symmetrical English, most likely. If not, Josh may play some crap like I did, and you can play b3. You can play bishop g2, knight c6, castle, or allow this, but if Black's allowed to get e5, like with some, like okay, Black gets what they really want with knight c6 and e5. It's difficult. So Josh is going to think here. Also make sure he gets the right setup. You're getting the moves. Oh, okay. We're live here. So this is going to be interesting what setup Josh goes for. So let's talk about this more on the analysis board. Generally, okay, like if bishop g2 and you do bishop g2, knight c6, normal, like in a castle, like you normally would in a ready, Black's going to get e5, and it's not so simple, right? It's definitely not the comfortable advantage you would want with White in something like this. You can't play d4. It's sort of going to be like a Maroczy bind. Usually the best thing to do here is to play c4. Of course, you can play like a King's Indian attack with d3, but that's a bit too wild for me. c4, you can play d5, you can play d6. One setup that I know is something along the lines of this. It's called the Botvinnik setup. You're going to castle, whatever, something sort of like this. There's lots of ways this could go. Like, I have no clue. So, okay. So Josh has played b3, which I think could happen. Some crap like this. Not crap, of course. I'm just being facetious. Right? Has he played it? Looks like it to me. So b3. Okay. Fairly obviously what's going to happen. I am very curious of what setup that Zach's going to go with. Will he go for d5? Will he go for 65? Lots of things could happen here. Very interesting choice by Josh not to go for c4. He's a known English player. I suppose it makes sense, right? You want to go for something more practical against a lower rated player? I see no issue. It's definitely better than the way I was playing. The self-deprecation is going to continue. Zach plays b5. I like b5. b5 is very, very fun. So b5 is sort of what's called like a Spassky variation. Not this exact variation, but b5 is very, very, very. It's a very cool move. And the whole idea is not to put the bishop on b7 even. Like there's much more here. You're gaining a lot of queenside space. c4 now comes with some questions like, okay, am I going to take? Am I going to play b4? Very, very good. And you're avoiding d5 because these structures probably end up being something that Josh is pretty familiar with. Here, okay, bishop g2, bishop b7, or bishop, yeah, bishop g2, bishop b7, bishop b2 is possible, but yeah. b5 is an interesting move. I like it. Computer's not a total believer in it, but nothing wrong with that move. I really don't think. Okay. Let's put the moves on my board so I can see. Should be 7 here. Yeah. Here's c4 is possible. c4, and in a lot of these structures you want to play b4. Bishop b2 happens. Again, I don't know. Now the issue is after e6 and d5, I'm not so sure. Like, it just looks to me as if black's getting a lot. Okay, e6. Let's see he delays c4 even more. Let's say castle. d5. I mean, I like the position for black. I mean, I don't see much. I mean, d3, you could play very passively like this, but I mean, this looks. If Josh keeps delaying the inevitable, which is some pawn break, I'm not sure I love this. a4 is their b4. I like the Spassky stuff here. 95 is very. I've been looking at this variation, so usually you have to do something, right? Here would be e4. Usually, if you don't play c4, you play e4 in these structures. So it'd be interesting to see. After bishop b2, what's he going to play? I'm not completely sure. Yeah, I mean, so he plays bishop b2 after e6. Okay, we get something. e6, c4. Try the b5 pawn. Let's see what happens. So b4 is possible. After b4, this strikes me as a little odd though, but I suppose you're getting a5. I'm just trying to double check before I make these moves. It doesn't seem like black has that much there, to be honest. So Josh goes for this extremely practical setup. e6 is good to discourage d4. Like, okay, e6. If d4 was played, which is probably the easiest break to play intuitively. Now there's d5. Take on c5, bishop takes. And black's really comfortable. Black's definitely equalized, I would say. And Zachariah plays e6. Okay. So e6 on the board. I love the play so far from Zachariah. He has taken some time, though. He's definitely taken some time to play this move. So who knows? I think Josh has to make a decision here. I don't think you can wait around too long, let d5 come and yeah, shiver. Josh playing very practically here. Castles. Okay. Okay. I guess I'm not that surprised by castles. Yeah, I figured maybe c4. After c4 takes. I mean, black's in no problem here. I mean, this is just okay. It's nothing great for black, but it's fine. So Zach delays d5. This is very thematic because at points you don't know if you want to play d6 or d5. Imagine a knight coming to d5. It'd be very nice if you had d6 square. So d5, it's nice. Also, of course, the most nominal way to look at it is that the bishop on b7 is now open, but you never know when you want to play d6. Keeping himself flexible. He knows his bishop's going to go to b7. This bishop's never going to go to d6, even with the pawn on d5. And he hasn't made any attempt to play something like d4 yet. Now, another way, a very concrete way to challenge this pawn, d5 would be and usually okay. You don't want to take it. I suppose you can. It's very interesting. I mean, if you take, you want to take with the rook, obviously. I don't know. It's something. Okay, let's keep developing. But this is very dank. Like, okay, now with the rook on a4, you have e4. I don't know. I don't think this is the way someone would play. Normally, thematically, you're going to play like a b4. Okay, you're going to play something slower, like a d3 going for e4. I don't know. I really like Black's position because if you don't understand this thematic break with a4, which might look bad immediately because of b4, you feel sort of cramped on the queen side, like everything's locked down. You don't want to play c3. It just doesn't feel right. I mean, Josh is a very practical player, so if it doesn't feel right, he's not necessarily going to play it. Which is why this castle boost was impressive. He wasn't afraid. I assume, okay, we have c4, but we looked at c4, bc4, black's completely equal, and d4 I think is the most dramatic way to challenge. Probably not so sure. I would think you wouldn't want to take like knight d4, then I don't know. Oh, bishop e7's hanging. But yeah, but this is immediately a bit more bad. I like this line.
Which one?
This b5 line. It's nice. This isn't the best way to play the line. I think it's no. I think it is. It's very nice. Very, very nice. Some Spassky stuff.
Do you know how to find passwords?
So yeah, a4 is a very typical way, I guess, to concretely challenge the pawn. I think d4 will be played. I don't think a4 will be played. It looks a little scary intuitively when you calculate the first few moves with b4. Pretty sure d4 will be played. And d4 it looks like. That makes sense. All right, a4 is played. Wow, Josh plays a4. Now this was not so intuitive to me. A4 is not. I thought d4 this was okay. Of course, you want to play c3. I mean, you can. c3.
Show everyone.
Cool.
No, this is
Awesome.
YouTube charts this though.
And Zach immediately plays b4. That makes sense. Taking on a4 looked interesting with rook a4, but b4 is a way to try to play for something. It's a very imbalanced game. It's not going to be a dry game where everything trades off. Right? Lots of imbalance here. And if you're wondering d4, like what's the difference with d4 now? I feel like you can just ignore it. You also have cd, knight d, bishop g4. If you do cd, bishop takes, trying to preserve something. Knight c6, and yeah. So it's hard to say you're getting somewhere. Both players are taking a good bit of time, which is a little bit surprising. I mean, I was taking time. I was trying to annoy my opponent, I think. But yeah, after b4, c4 is the computer line, but this looks absolutely wrong from a human standpoint after castles. And I mean, I guess you play d4, cd. Again, if you take with the knight, I'm taking on g2. If you take with the bishop, I'm developing. So black looks comfortable there. a4, b4. So d4, you're taking and taking on g2, and it's nowhere near bad for white, but I would definitely take black, and that's something you normally don't say so early on in a decent level game like this. So c4, I'm not so sure about. d3 is possible, preparing e4. Okay, let's just play some moves. Here in e4, it's hard to stop e4. I mean, you can play d5, maybe, right? d5, knight d2, and you're trying to play this like a King's Indian sort of, but with the bishop on d2. I don't know. Okay, let's castle, and you still can't. Can you play e4? e4, take. Knight e5. So there are some tactics here for sure. with these bishops facing each other. I wouldn't call this a tactical opening, but there are some strategies that even I wasn't so aware of, I suppose. So b4. I don't like d4. I think a decent human decision is d4 takes, bishop takes, knight c6, bishop b2. Peter says it's worse. So, Josh already down to 16 minutes. This is not so good for Josh. Bishop b2, okay. Because why is black so much better? It's really not. The computer sits around and thinks. Okay, so Josh plays d3, so he doesn't go for anything direct. I think d3 is probably the objectively best playable move going for e4. But I don't know. d5 is definitely something. d5, knight d2. Let's say castles. E4 is possible, but you have to calculate. 95, E3. I mean, if Josh plays E4, credit to him in a position like this, but it just looks impossible to me. We're playing 95. D4, 94. Okay, yes, okay. 94, you have knight E5 again. It's tactically hard to pull off, but you can do it with some calculation. But D3, it's a soft move. Very interesting. A5. I don't know if I like this. A5 seems sort of like a waste of time. Let's go look at the players. I don't know. A5 might be okay. But okay, like how do you get E4, right? I think D5 was a nice try. The computer isn't so sure about it. The computer says, okay, D5, I can still pull off E4. Sure. Looks hard to do, though. Looks like Josh played E4. Yep, E4. And now the game starts to open more up, and I'm starting to enjoy White's position a bit more. I still kind of like black, actually. But okay, you have more space in the center, but queen side, castle, and c6. I cannot play d5, so what's going on here? I don't like a5. I don't think a5 makes much sense. I like d5. What can I say? The computer doesn't like it, but from a practical point of view, I think d5 was really, really nice. So already here, the game looks a lot different, though, right? Because with e5 on the board, you always have just e5 ideas. You have to be careful. Okay. Looks like Zachariah played a move. Let's see what he played. D6 makes sense. D6 is logical. You're starting to stray more towards White being a little more comfortable. Computer actually has a really, really cool one. E5. Yeah. So the knight took knight 95, allowing bishop g2, king g2 in here. The computer says White is much better. Black maybe overextended on the queen side, like knight d2, c4 is there. I mean, oof. It suddenly turns, right? And like it's not Zachariah's fault. This is a very difficult water to traverse. But e5 is not so, doesn't make the most sense to me. Bishop e5. Again, there's knight c6, bishop e2, but you lost your e-pawn, maybe? Yeah. You don't want to lose your e-pawn for nothing. So Zachariah has already tried to turn this back into like some weird knight or stuff. So d5, Josh played knight bd2, common practical move, and then knight bd7. I think maybe the knight belongs on c6. C6, there's e5. And now there's really some pressure, right? Really some pressure here. You have to play queen c7, and black is a little tied down, maybe. Oh. So knight d2, knight d7. Okay, that makes sense. So knight bd7 might be more correct. Of course, I'm not looking at the entire time. I'm trying to look at this with some human eyes. Very flawed, might I say. But yeah. So here the computer still wants e5. Again, it's difficult for me to wrap my head around it completely. After knight e5, bishop takes, king takes. You can play knight e5, bishop e5 castles. The c4 square, man. This c4 square, very nice for white. So white has some practical advantages with the weaknesses, but other than that, it's actually not so simple. Like, we're gonna have to see. I don't exactly know what pawn break black's going to go for. I don't think e5 will be played. I think it's begging to be played, but it's a very hard move to play. You have to calculate all of this. The pieces coming off would be good for white, though, especially the light squared bishop, because these light squares eventually will be very, very weak. So I think positionally, e5 makes sense. Tactically, e5 is harder to pull off, but it also makes sense, I think. Of course, you can just prepare e5, which is probably what Josh is going to do. I would think like queen e2. This is probably what I would play, queen e2. The practical move, you're preparing to play e5. Okay, what's black really going to do? d5 completely now. Castles, you can even prepare it more. Computer says rook e1. And it starts to look like a very closed system where maybe white's going to try to play with that f4 move and such. Interesting game. I'm one to speak because I spent so much time, but that was a calculated decision. These guys are spending so much time. It is move 10, and they have spent half their time.
Do not have
So let's get it. Yeah, time's going to be a big issue here.
Can you plug this in?
Yeah. Okay. So knight c4 comes. Knight c4 wasn't necessarily on my radar. It seems like one of those moves where like it's just an easy move to make, but it's not the right time for it. But okay. But of course, the biggest drawback of this move compared to playing a move like queen e2, where d5 is love the analysis board up. The difference I thought with knight c4 and preparing with queen e2 or something is that d5 is much harder to pull off now because you would just take. And the key's feeling a bit more open, right? However, with knight c4 immediately, d5 is a thing, I think. Of course, there's knight e3. There's still ed, apparently. Okay, but this is knight force the top move. Yeah, no one's going to take on. I mean, this is rough. This is rough. C4, I think D5 is an alternative when it wasn't so much before. Computers still actually says D5 is possible, but this looks okay for black to me. Okay, 93, yeah, 93 looks suspicious, but it's okay. Knight CE5. You're letting black trade, right? And that's what black wants in this position. Of course, and now, especially since D5 controls the C4 square, I thought that's what this entire game was going to be about. Maybe there's something there with Knight C4 allowing D5. I really like Queen. Queen E2, D5. Now, when you take, maybe you think even, oh yeah, G7's hanging. Okay, maybe bishop D5. But again, this is, oh, but Knight E5 is the best move again. Interesting. But again, the C4 square is completely yours now because the default's gone. So I mean, this is a relatively positional concept. I think like over the board it'd be figured out even at a high level, but Knight C4 may be a little weird, but it's a practical move. You make them right. In chess, you make moves. And what Zachariah is doing is so wrong. He's just matching what Josh is doing. Josh gets low on time all the time. You have to pressure. You can try if you're Zach. No, I think Zach's position plays itself. You play D5. Okay, what's a more likely move? D5. Taking looks right after bishop D5. I mean, 95. Maybe there's this. Okay, you want to keep the bishop. No, but this is still pleasant for white, I think. Still okay. So knight c4. But d5 is what you play, right? I mean, d5, you play for pawn breaks in chess. Okay, Zachariah castles. This makes sense. So what changes now? Now it's white's move. Right, and if you can pull it off, this knight on c4, but you want to shift your focus maybe to this f4 move. Right, and when that comes to your mind, okay, right here makes sense. Right here, f4, oops, not there. Here, f4, going for some sort of attack. Josh, as a King's Indian player, is definitely going to at least consider this. Again, though, d5. I'm not so sure. Now, if you take, it's looking shaky. I've lost my control of the center with this e pawn, controlling lots of squares. Okay, e5 is a little tactical. Knight e3. d4 is playable. Of course, it obviously weakens the square, but it's space, right? It's space, and I don't know. I must say I really enjoy Black's position even now, even after castles. So knight of d2 is computer best line, but I'm not so convinced it's ready yet to be played. It could be played again. E5. The computer keeps shouting this move e5. Say e. Stick like this. But again, simplification's probably good for white with the knight on c4, right? But I don't know. It's definitely a dynamic game. This game could go many ways. It really depends on what Josh wants. Josh is in the driver's seat here. Lots of ways that could. Lots of things that could happen. Both players are spending an absurd amount of time. That's what's crazy. An absurd amount of time. I mean, Josh has 10 minutes to play an entire game. But he's coming to terms with the position. He is understanding what's going on. As a King's Indian player, though, Josh is very comfortable. I can tell he's spending a lot of time, but he's going to be comfortable with this. I mean, he understands the ideas. Maybe even the difference is okay. Maybe knight e1, right? Because you want this d2 square for the other knight. But computer pulls out a very nice line. d5. Okay, again, if you take, probably happy at the full center. You have everything you've ever wanted. knight e1, d5. Computer says queen c7, even just holding everything together. If I'm Zach, this is a move I'm playing. I'm holding everything together. He plays f4, I play d5. When the opponent plays on the flank, he plays the makes sense to me. When Josh is getting low on time. He needs to make a practical decision here. That's essentially what he has to do. His knight's on c4, his opponent castled, right? He needs to make a move. Let's see. Let's go to the players. Let's see what Josh is doing. So I think there's a lot of interesting play here. So Josh has played a move. He plays queen d2, which looks wrong to me. d2 is a very, very important square. Like one of the knights going there as an escape square. d2 looks wrong. Immediately, I'm thinking something like d5. I'm going to pull up the analysis board. Let's actually try to pressure on the clock. And Zach's very practical, extremely practical. He's going to realize this, but he might respect Josh too much. You should never respect the higher rated player, ever, no matter who it is. Don't respect. Play your game. Like if Zach was playing this against a 15-year-old, he's like 500, he'd be playing instantly. He immediately plays d5. He would immediately play it. Immediately. Gotta trust yourself, Zach. Gotta trust yourself. Queen d2. What's wrong with queen d2? I was right. d5. Zach, play d5. It's begging to be played now. Now this knight doesn't have such an obvious square to go, and neither does the other one. So it's going to go to, okay, let's go to the analysis board. After d5, again, we'll show this again. After takes, I think knight takes, okay, oh yeah, of course. You're forcing the knight away. Now, knight e5 again. You don't have c4, so all these trades benefit black, right? Because you control space on the queen side. So knight e3, this is probably what he's planning to play. You can play d4. There's knight f5, but your bishop here is dead, and I'm not completely sure. What does Zach play? Zach plays queen c7, not as direct as d5. However, I think this is a very decent move. You're keeping tension. The issue is, again, since you haven't forced anything out of me, what if I play rook a1? Now what about d5? What's the issue? e7's hanging, so I can't take with the pawn. It's much, much different. So rook a1, just an improving move, actually has a tactical point. So I could see Josh playing this and realizing that. I think queen d2 was an odd move. It's not like a mistake. It's definitely an accuracy, but it's just odd. Queen c7, I mean, I think it's still good. You're forcing Josh to make another decision. Keep forcing him to make decisions. Right? This is a way to beat someone who plays like this, right? You keep making them make decisions. No, it's only +5 increment. It's not like you have +30, which is very, very odd, right? Like you feel like this is a long game, you play for so long. You feel like you have increment once you get down on time. And it becomes a blitz game for sure. Josh, of course, should still be relatively happy with this position after rook a1, rook fe1 even. If you try for knight e3 here, which seems like maybe a prophylactic move, it might be wasting time. d5 might be a thing, knight e5. You know, never count out Zachariah to go for an attack as well. Probably not here like this, but I don't know. d5, I think I'm just so surprised d5 was not played. It's just such a thematic move, especially with this bishop here to go here. This knight here is okay, but what's it to you, right? Rook fe1 is played. It doesn't make as much sense as this rook here, especially considering you want to play a4 f5 maybe in the future. Rook e1, again, there's a big point now. d5 would be very, very difficult to pull off because you're having to deal with all these complications, right? And white's bishop is completely open. You have everything you want. So this is the drawback of not playing d5 is that you're not going to be able to play it. And again, you have to make a practical decision. Now, what I do like in this position is knight b6. I really like knight b6. Now that there's no d2 square, this square is very challengeable. I like this move. e5. e5 strikes me as wrong. And the reason e5 is wrong, this square is weak. Maybe this is an idea. And now you have a hook to play f4 with. Still not simple. It's still not trivial. It's hard to make use of any light squares, but this square is very obviously usable. right? 90. It's trouble. You can play G6, maybe G6. Actually, don't dislike the position completely. What did Josh play? Surely he played 93. I think 93. Rook F1. Okay. You have to be careful, Zach. He has to see some plan of being patient, bringing the bishop this way, and anticipating this move. Interesting. There's also still knight b6 hitting this because the queen's a little awkward. Knight b6, queen b6, knight h4 maybe. But again, if Zachariah finds this resource of just staying back, these last squares are not being used by this bishop. That's weird. But concretely, if you play in the right way, rook f1 I don't like. Peter said it's a move, but immediately I would be playing this g6 move. Because what I'm avoiding is knight e3, knight f5, and I'm preparing to move the rook and play bishop f8. Of course, f4 is coming, but I'm not sure. Let's just play out a line. Okay. Let's say you really want to pull this off, right? No, this probably blunders something. Like an ID. I don't know. Rook f1's weird, but I like you get the concept, and h6 is played. This is the first mistake mark given by chess.com in the game. Or, do I have the right position on my board? H6. And knight h4 is played. And the issue is this h4 is this h6 pawn is really weak. So now when you try to play something like this, it's very, very difficult. Everything's hanging. Suddenly this is looking more like a position Josh is very happy with. I mean, f4 is coming, knight f5 is coming. 6 very bad. h6 is a very, very bad from a strategic point of view. So let's look at the players. Josh with full advantage in this position. We'll just have to see how this goes. Will Zachariah be able to fight with the weak f5 square and possibly an f4 move coming? How will he try to defend? Okay, you can play. I'm not even completely sure. It's very difficult. Let me think. I'm not sure. Yeah, here the position's really bad. I mean, rook f8 or rook e8 and bishop f8 makes sense to me. I think that's the most logical way to play. Knight f5, after that, bishop f8. You just try to hope. Then f4 is coming, and this is just the perfect position for Josh. It's just perfect. That's the issue. Perfect. Clear advantage white. And I think we're going to start. I think we're going to see something. Knight h7. Okay, what could be the point of this move? Knight h7 frees the f-pawn. This is a solid move. Knight f5 comes. And I mean, I like white. Even if I didn't have the evaluation here, I would actually think it's around this, right? This is just so difficult to play. Bishop g5, there's f4. Maybe this is what Zachariah was going for. Looks tough to pull off now. Very tough to pull off. Almost impossible, I think. So the time's getting closer. We're going to keep a little bit on the players here because I think the play here is straightforward, right? Is Zach going to be able to defend here? There are lots of moves, right? There are lots of ways to play here, I think. Yeah, I if I was Zach, I would be relatively afraid here because f4 is just coming, man, and it's gonna hit hard. Rook e8 makes sense to me. Rook f8, trying for knight f8, bishop f8. Some piece wants to go onto this square. Let's see what was played. Knight b6 makes sense. You're redefending the bishop. Oh, no. It doesn't redefend the bishop. e7's hanging. And that's a good game. Wow. And this is a very important. It's very unfortunate. You don't know where to put the pieces. It gets difficult, right? So a piece up. Josh is going to convert this. Wow. Very, very, very interesting game. Lots to learn here, by the way. Lots to learn. Um, h6. These pawn moves around your king. Very, very difficult. Very, very bad. A good game. We'll go to break. I'll go see the players, see how it's going. Very, very nice game from Josh. A very rich game in terms of strategic concepts. So we'll be right back.
All right. Oh man, already. Well, this also died, so we'll have to stick with this for a little.
But did I hear? Oh. Okay. King Indian with knight BD7. A little inaccurate, but it's to avoid deep strange variation. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Let's play this one.
Okay, in today's game.
In today's video, Zachariah. Okay, e5. And I don't exactly recall exactly why this knight BD7 line is not as accurate, but there are many reasons. Okay, bishop e3. So Zach's, playing some theory. This is good. He's playing a good opening. This is good news for Zach's tournament hopes.
And he really needs to win this one to get anywhere.
Yeah, he needs to win it. So here, like an okay setup for black, since you have this bishop on e3, is to take. Knight takes in b6.
Thank you, destruction factor. That's nice.
Thanks. Oh, I can do more impressions.
By all means, let's go.
I don't know. Very interesting setup. No, I can do the Russian accent. Interesting setup.
Just throw some pieces. Edge from the edge.
Yeah. Okay, so he attacks the juicer. Okay, goes back to d2, d2, h3. I wish my arrows were shut. Okay, but knight g4 is very thematic. Remember, the bishop is on e3. I'm a King's Indian player, so I actually kind of know what I'm talking about here. So bishop g5, f6. You bring the bishop back, and black is sort of cramped, but you're also getting some development advantage. But I mean, white's completely okay. I don't think in this particular line it's amazing to play this, because normally after f6 you want to play f5, but now the knight's on d7. So now it's hard to pull off f5. I think there are other reasons. Bishop g5, right? f6 is the thematic move. No way. The computer move is bishop f6, but in every other line in this sort of idea with knight g4, the idea is f6. Bishop goes back somewhere, usually like d2 or c1. I like c1, but both moves are totally playable. Like, you do the game. Now, if Josh plays bishop f6, we are scanning him for sure, because that just it makes sense. There's situations where you give away this dark square bishop. It's not actually good. The biggest myth in the world is that the dark square bishop with the King's Indian is good. And like half of the variations, it's not. You just want to play it off.
Well, that's only 50% of the time.
Yeah, but this is one of them. Yes. He's actually taking time, though. He may
be out of his prep at this point.
Well, yeah, but this is not prep. He plays knight bd7 to get out of prep. This is the whole point. So, like, what's it like? F6 is the most thematic move. He'll play it.
Maybe he's calculating at this point. It's definitely not coming from him, right? And
as a King's Indian player, like, yeah, he's totally going to play.
And they've used like barely seconds, pretty much, on any of the moves. Although knight g4 was around a minute-long thing.
If he plays, I am confused why it takes so long to play this move. Now it's not the best move. So bishop d2, bishop c1 are both ideas. And now with the knight on d7, it's hard to play f5. The computer still says you can play f5. Now h4 is weird because there's g5, but that's a little much. But it's playable. I would play g5, but I'm actually insane. Josh is a more practical King's Indian player. He probably won't play it, but it's a move. Like g5, let's do the analysis. Like g5, you have bishop g3. You don't necessarily want to play h5 yet, I don't think, because you probably have to right? You probably have e5 and okay, so e5 here. It's playable. h5 is playable, but after h3, it feels very weakening. Which is why normally you play f5, knight h6, or knight f6, and h5. Which is why this whole setup's a little clunky. So let's go back to that. So board. This setup's clunky because the knight's on d7, I think. I'm not completely sure. But this is the reason you play knight d7, because you're avoiding the d5 lines, like the actual theory, right? It's actually been prepping stuff, so he probably has some ideas on what he wants to play. G5 would be very, very crazy. I'd probably play G5 depending on my opponent. I don't know.
What they've got on the board.
Yeah. This is
Black's still thinking?
Yeah.
Black is still thinking.
Now Josh is playing this D7 move because he understands the structure and he just wants to play again. This is why you play knight d7. Also, another reason is to avoid the exchange variation. Quick take here because literally can't take the queen. So you're avoiding drawish lines. Like Zach could have went for a really drawish line. Now, of course, I really don't see why knight b7 was played because I guess the rating point. But so Josh is at a must win no matter what because I don't think he wants to draw.
I think Zachariah is at must win.
Yeah, but like Josh is also at a must win because he doesn't want to lose rating points. So that's what's so tough about these matchups. Is like, even in my second game with Lucas, if I just wanted to kill the game, I can't do it. Now I probably could, but it's on your opponent.
He's also like unrated at this much. That would
It wouldn't affect too much. It wouldn't affect too much, I guess. G5. C6, a very common move. The computer also says C6 restricts the D5 move and the knight on C3. But when you play a line with F6 and knight G4, it's in the spirit of the position to go for this really chaotic position. You don't play knight G4, you don't want the chaos. Or else your bishop sucks. You can never take on D4 because your bishop just sucks. Your knight's on D7 for one.
I don't think he'll probably play any of the top three lines. I'm not sure what C6.
I think G5 is
knight H6, G5. I don't see him playing.
Knight H6 is very common though. Like knight H6 makes sense because you're preparing F5.
Right, but I think he'll probably play knight H6.
I think he'll play knight H6. If I had to guess, yeah, knight H6.
I think if I had to guess, I would probably guess here or C6. Those
are a weird like King's Indian type move that pops into my mind. Rook F7 going for this. I don't know. G5 he plays it.
Plays it. Okay.
G5 bishop G3. I mean, there's H3, but no one's going to play that. 3 and Zach's up on time. He needs to keep this time advantage. The last game he had a huge time advantage and a couple of position, and he started overthinking things and just didn't play much critical moves. Well, now knight H6 is very much. I mean, you could play H5 if he's really going crazy. Yeah, and we could show this variation again. Okay, let's say H3, knight H6. It looks okay for black. Like computer says, oh, this is horrible, but it's very hard to realize why C5 is winning. It's hard to realize why Queen D2 is so good. Like, okay, let's say Queen D2, and it's against knight on D7. Bad. Interesting. C6, yeah, and it's just like there's not much progress. If you go too hard, too fast, these dark squares are super weak. If you go like this, you have no attack. Right. So, and your pieces aren't developed. A key in the King's Indian that'll now Josh is not a new King's Indian player, but a thing that a lot of new King's Indian players and they see these moves immediately, right? But it weakens squares and not developed enough to actually use these squares that you carved out. Which is why this move is very insane because you're weakening a lot. And White knows what they're doing, especially with the knight on D7. It could get difficult, but let's see what. So knight H6 was I would actually play it. I think that's the most reasonable move. You're actually, you say, okay, this knight sucks, but I'm gonna play F5. Computer says FE5, opening the F file, it looks okay, and then H3. Not a move you like feel good playing, but it makes sense when you look at it. Like there is no real hook yet. Okay, let's say not H6 probably. It says knight C5 makes sense. You don't care about this because you choose 6. I like both sides. Like I don't know, it's just a typical position.
Very interesting. It has the edge that White needs, and it
But
also
the computer
has
always
the
knows
chaos.
this. Yes.
It also has the chaos that is required for I think Zachariah probably thrives in the most chaotic positions.
And he's a King's Indian player, which is why I think Zach, of course, it's a long shot. Oh, H4. H4 is played. So Zach sees no risk in the position and says, okay, I'm going to take. Obviously, this is not the right move. But if he takes, either piece takes, apparently bishop taking is best. Just look at these squares. I mean, this just looks like too much. You have no development. H4, the computer gives, an inaccuracy because of G4. And now F5 is coming. If F5 wasn't coming, if the knight wasn't on H6, this move might be sort of weird, right? But not H2, F5. And suddenly you somehow defended the pawn. Let's say EF5. But it's not so simple after bishop F5, right? It looks like a lot of stuff is hanging. You have bishop G4, and this is, oh man, this is, okay. Josh is going to play G4, 100%. Does even the computer say there's another move? No. So let's look at these variations from a human point of view. Let's turn off these lines. For G4 and the knight H2. Oh, sorry. I'm hitting E4. F5, obviously. I take on F5 because I want to get this, and not F5. So let's say bishop takes. You take here. Take here. You take here, obviously. Pretty obvious enough. Maybe I get E4.
Knight e5, maybe?
Knight D5.
Knight e5. No, knight e4, knight e5.
Knight E4, knight E5, bishop. You can also trade the bishop. I think you do because you slice it so we can king, right? Yeah. You probably. You want to take the queen, right? Because you want to. Because you want the queen on like D7 or something, right? Because these squares, like you can't. Yeah.
I think
I guess
maybe.
yeah, because you're not doing anything here because this diagonal is actually pretty well controlled. I think. But just the perfect move for Zach. Why? It's not losing. It's very complicated, and Josh is going to spend a ton of time. And this is why it's a great move. And I think the computer evaluation is a bit missing because of how many different captures there are. G4 is going to hang, D4 is going to hang, and most likely what I would expect from a human point of view, I would say Josh would probably play this. He's obviously calculated this. He had to calculate this, and probably this. In between move. This is now hanging again. Are there any cool tactics? I don't see any. Knight E4 going for G5. This is now defended, and this is it. This is probably the reputation, right? Like, Josh is on now.
And even after this much calculation, if you have a 0.5 advantage to show for it, and you're like 8 minutes down, I think.
But the issue is H4, as funny enough as it is, like it looks like it's weakening on the move it makes. But the whole point is that now, I think, right? Like now, like the queen hits it. But still, look at White's bishop. I mean, these are nice. The pieces are centralized. This pawn, I mean, C5 is going to come, but is this pawn really anything? It's not going anywhere. You do have an open F file, but Black doesn't have pawns to push at the king. White might have some pawns to push at the king.
So some point later. I think I like this move just because
I like H4.
it pushes like everything.
And guess what? The safe move, like I would not completely rule out if he sees this and sees that this and takes and doesn't realize all these things are hanging and Black's probably okay. He might just take. And this is no, because D4 like this, you don't take with the knight.
Mm-hmm.
Even computer says this is really, really nice.
Right.
And it looks like, from Black's point of view, if we flip the board, this looks okay. Like I'm going to move my knight. I'm going to play F5. It looks playable. And with H4, King H8. Wow. Okay, let's flip the board back. King H8 was played. This can't be good, right?
I don't think so.
King H8. Oh man, Zach might. Let's look at the lines again. H5 here. This isn't hanging.
The computer is awarded as a miss, so it's definitely.
Well, because he could have just played G4 and had an okay position, but that's very hard to play. And apparently here at D5, this is really weak. I would not play that. Is it that weak? Because this is coming and everything's protecting, right? Possible. It's the King's Indian type of move. Knight h2, attacked a lot, it's defended a lot. Knight f6, like I said. Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to that. Yeah, let's see what the body language is. Josh looks content, but when you play a move like King H8, he realized, I think, he calculated HG or a G4, Knight H2, everything's hanging. Right. And I do not blame him. I think I personally, I know my weaknesses as a player. I probably would have played the even worse move and probably taken on H4. I'm like, no, of course I'm not calculating. But like if I was at the board, if I had to guess my own move, I'd probably play H4. I don't. It depends on my mood. I might play F5 because it can be losing, but it also looks very, very rough. Again, Josh is playing on his opponent as well, which people say don't do, but I think is sometimes, as long as you're playing like objectively good chess, is a good thing to do. Like me against Lucas, I played bad moves and still could psychologically still play.
Right. That was bad moves objectively.
But those are just objectively bad moves. Yeah.
Those are not like if it was if I assume if you were playing Abby, you would not have on that.
But Abby was being her teacher.
Yeah, Rook A1, Rook H1, you would not. You
But
could not.
what I had to do was, I play, I play A4. I play for okay. I get crushed. I come back and play A6. You have to just keep going. You can't show any psychological weakness. Anyway,
I think
Zach
it was
takes.
not A4. It was not.
Oh no! I actually got a good position on the other.
So you actually were doing really well.
Yeah. This is not the position.
So there's.
Oh yeah. Here. Okay, here. So Zach. And this looks okay for black. I mean, the king on H8. I think there may have been a way maybe to. Really, yeah, but takes. Huh. It looks okay for black. I would take black, but Josh is also down on time, and if you pose some problems, this could be an issue. I like I keep saying it. I like both sides, but both sides kind of have what they want. White has the stable advantage with no real attack yet, and black has an unclear position with a pawn on G5, which is safe. The knight's coming to F6 maybe, and you have some play, right? Probably what you really want to do, if I had to be really picky King's Indian players, move the knight to F7 and play something like H5, H4, but that is really, really aggressive. Like you would really have to calculate, make sure you're not weakening.
Right, and also your bishop on C8 is still like behind a knight and a pawn. It's not developed. It doesn't know where it's going to be in the next few moves.
Black doesn't feel like they have a really clear attack, is the thing.
I mean, yes, and also the thing like for white, the plan can be really simple, like some sort of queen c2, and then connecting the rooks, playing in the center, whereas black has to really try and play the king side since the h pawn is really absent.
Right.
So there's multiple ideas, and then that can be used.
Nice idea for white. DE B4, like the computer says, like you're playing on the queen side. Oh, I like it. Also, you are, if you take on D5, you're essentially forcing black to take on E5, which is an isolated pawn. It really doesn't feel like one. It's an isolated pawn. If you take with the bishop, I'm taking, obviously. If you take with the knight, I'm taking, trading everything off. You have too many weaknesses. You'll have this, I don't know. Like, I think for a white King's Indian player, that's what you want. You want to kill the attack and play something dry, where you have more space on the queen side. So DE B4. And what's funny about this idea, I don't know if you'll play B4, but it's very clean, right? And it's very simple. So I think it's very possible that Zach bails out here. He could very well get scared of G5 or FG5. You might see knight f7 H5. And knight f7 is just a really, really nice move, I think. It's sort of clunky. That's why this knight DD7 move is not so good. It's just always sort of clunky when you go down like mainline territory. And Zach really tried to go down some mainline territory with bishop e3, which is actually, I don't think he knew this. He might, but I think bishop e3 is like the precise way, like GM to try to fight this knight DD7 move because there's no knight d4. Now, of course, Josh played it, but he could have got a really bad position out of it.
Right.
And usually when bishop on e3, you have knight g4 and f5 coming, and it's complicated, and that's why no one plays bishop e3. I think I didn't look at it too much, but I'm pretty sure that's what I've at least observed. I did not know that beforehand. I just kind of looked at it.
So if Zachary learns anything, I'm pretty sure he'll add a new chapter in his repertoire.
Yeah.
So that is good on either way.
And he'll remember this game. He'll know if Knight BD7 comes, then
Right.
okay, like
Bishop B3,
I know
that
that like
makes
this is
sense,
good.
yes.
And Knight G4 is weird, and especially in a classical game, he has all the time. He needs to play a move though, but this is a critical juncture. This is very, very critical. Computer says Queen D2, and it's C6.
I think he spent a bunch of time. I think he spent almost around 4 minutes at this point.
This is very critical. This is the moment you want to spend. D5, I don't like though. Like it's the best move, but I don't. I like Queen D2. Play Queen D2, Zachariah. It forces something. It's not the computer best move. D5 also gives C5, but B4, I don't know. I don't think he'll take. If he takes, he bails out, and if I'm making a bet, I think Josh easily wins the game because there's just not enough play for Zachariah to make it chaotic enough to where you can kind of out-calculate. Queen D2 is very, very nice. I would not have that move. Well, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have if I didn't look at the engine. I would think it's probably like a really weird move. Makes sense. Like here, right? The takes maybe. It's a similar concept. I guess you usually want to take. Maybe that's another thing. Is this move is very flexible. Take 95 is very, very flexible. But I like black. I would take black.
My question is, what does the knight go to? What's his final square?
Probably H2, but if F5 or H5 is coming, that's very dangerous. But the thing about the knight's sort of stuck to D4.
So, well, that is one reason why it would
D5?
deter me from playing Queen D2 is that I kind of want to rotate the knight. If I have to rotate it out, I would probably think.
But after knight H2, knight F6, what is white doing with knight here? And like, what's the knight doing on D2 besides hanging the pawn? Like, knight D5. That's C6. Now E3. Let's go to the analysis board. Let's see this. 95, given a mistake, there's no mistakes in the King's Indian. Like everything's a mistake. So there's an in-between move here in G4. G4 is just in between move as well. Very, very complicated. Josh might go for that, but first let's look at the obvious moves. C6, knight E3 is the idea. But I don't see how these squares are weak for white. Like, knight's going to move and the bishop's going to control this. And G4 is still coming. Knight F6 is coming. It's very, very pleasant. And I already am sort of not liking the position. And C6 is going to come so quick. It's going to come so quickly. Like it's going to be played and nothing happened. G4 is the other move. Because like even if knight E3 were inevitable, which it is, like it's inevitable, why not kick the knight and make it go there? I don't know. Knight C5 is weird. Probably would have rather played D5, right? Let's just go down the line. Okay, C6, knight E3. Computer says G4. Knight H2, probably move knight F6, and everything's holding. Everything's holding here. Bishop H4 is a quite crazy move. Knight D2 looks like it hangs his pawn, but this is also hanging. It's more complicated than it looks, and I'm not sure if Zachariah calculated all of this. However, what I am sure of is that it's going to get to a position like this. And it's going to be complicated. Black could be in trouble for sure. Black just needs to keep his mind here. He has like equal position, complicated position. You can't go crazy. You can't just hang a piece, right? 95 months. Players see how Josh is looking. He's probably a little more perked up, I would say. Like a move like this, okay. Play 95, I'm going to play C6. G4. Again, if Zachariah meant this and he calculated all this, it's extremely creative. But black does have what they want. Okay, C6 is played. Knight E3 will probably be played. Next, yeah, knight E3. And knight F6, right? Like I figured this was queen F6, okay. Queen F6 is interesting. Apparently, it's not a good move. Mistake. C6 93, Queen F6. Peter says DE. If DE, I have a ton of space on the queen side. Okay, so it's one of these computer moves that's like, okay, is it really a mistake? I don't see the point though. This is the issue. I do not see the point of this move. It feels clutterous. Like the knight wants to go there. I think the king's ending though is you're so used to making these maneuvering moves. Maybe the queen wants to go to g6. You know, the queen wants to go to g6. G6. You're attacking the pawn. And the pawn is very weak. When I played Tigran Petrosian and Fabiano Caruana in this opening, the thematic move was queen g6. And after that, I didn't know what to do. I had to go talk to my friend Michael Tao. And Michael Tao said, just sack a piece. And I said, oh, man, Michael. But that's what he did, you know? Michael Tao. There's your answer. But okay, you know, you have queen on f6 going to g6, you know, knight coming f6, everything plays, you know, push it on, not very position. DE, the bright move. Say that like Zax. Not playing the best moves. DE, and I don't know, White's pieces, like I can't really explain it. It just feels really good for White. It just feels really good. You have this isolated pawn. G4 doesn't have much vigor, right? E4, A4 are coming. You have tons of space on the queen side. This bishop sucks. This knight sucks because you play queen f6. There's play here. That's why the computer says it's okay. However, I would be very concerned with a position for White as well because of these ideas. So DE. Best move is B4. Now, what's a more likely move that Zach plays? Because I think that's a very, very high level move. Knight H2 is the knight's also coming to c5. Ooh, that's a threat you have to look out for. With DE, the knight's coming to c5, and you want to hit e4. It can get difficult. I like b4, a5 is what I think. A3. You're locked down as white. G4. Peter says knight d2, and knight h2 is also good. Knight h2, let's remaneuver the queen. G4 is hard to pull off in all these variations, even with a move like knight h2. But if Zach understands that this knight coming to c5 is really good, but why is it so good? Let's say your move works. Knight c5. Okay, to defend this, let's say queen c2. Okay, this is hanging, right? Yeah, this is also hanging. Lots of stuff is hanging. I mean, this is okay for Zachariah. He's played a move. B4 is a typical move. I mean, but it's hard to get yourself to play that move. I would like to be completely honest. It's very hard to get yourself to play that move. Very difficult. What do we play? Are we getting the moves? B4 was played. What a move from Zachariah. And Zachariah is going to slowly attempt to positionally squeeze this. Okay, let's say queen g6. Queen c2. And I say, what are you doing? G4. Let's go all at it. G4, knight h4, queen here. Knight's coming to f5, buddy, and my rooks are coming in. B4 is nice. I'm not sure if that's a move I would sort of automatically consider, which is very cool. Zach is an experienced player, and he can knock out people very well. Let's see what move was played. Queen e7. I think that's a good move. You're hitting B4. After this, okay, there's lots of moves going to be played. A3 could be played. Seems a little like A3, G4 seems like you're playing on the wrong side of the board. Maybe, I don't know. But here, there's even C5. And C5, oh, C5 is wonderful. C5, knight C4, knight D6. Oh, come on, Zach. Let's see if we can see. I love both the players, but I'm just cheering for Zach to play good moves. I'm cheering for both sides to play good moves. I'm a King's Indian player. I want to see Josh just completely break through, and I also want to see, Armageddon. I think that's gonna be fun. Armageddon would be a lot of fun. We haven't seen one yet today. Maybe in the next match we'll see one, but probably not considering how I'm playing. Self-deprecation. I like to use the restroom, but my buddy's not here. So, we'll be right back.
I will take over the analysis for a little bit, and let's get back. Queen e7 has been played a3, so Queen b7. Queen e7 was played attacking this before pawn, and I think one of the moves was c5. a3 was played top 3. Now rook f7. I think the idea is to try and develop on the pawn. Develop, I think, at some point after you play some sort of c7. You want to come back?
Oh no, you have. I don't care.
Rook
wait, rook f7's played?
Rook f7, and it says
Wait,
it's a
wait.
mistake. And now king h2 has
Go back. What was the? Oh, there.
king
C5.
h2.
C5, knight C4, knight
King
D6.
h2 is a mess.
And you're hitting F7. And you're hitting F5. He needs to find the C5 move. I think it's very nice. A3, I was hoping he wouldn't play that. I think it's kind of soft, right? I mean,
You have to play c5 first. I think what he's afraid of is probably something like a5 or something.
but A5, like you take, the queen protects A1. I mean, there is no threat with A5. A5 is a threat whenever
Only if
you're
there's some piece here.
underdeveloped. Or if there's not a piece there. If there's just not.
Oh, I forgot. We're also not. So anyway,
The king h2. I mean, king h2. What was his thought?
I don't know. That came in like
King. What was he thinking there was?
took him a minute though, which is interesting.
King h2 just looks so wrong.
Yeah, I think he wants to start rotating.
Come on, that's not where your play is. You're playing on the queen side. You're playing for knight d6.
Right, and I think you played something else.
G4 makes sense. Knight f8. Oh man, c5 again, but he's already not played it. c5. The knight's coming to g6, coming to f4.
Right. No, but the question is, so he's playing this. It's a twofold move. One is the bishop. The other is he wants to put the knight on g6, which means he's also trying to respond to this subtle threat of rook h1. I think.
I don't think.
I mean, he thinks of it as a threat, maybe. Like again, the idea again is
It's like tunnel vision on the king side.
what are you thinking psychologically? Yeah, because you see how these pieces are here now.
They're protecting the king.
Hold on. Let's see. Here's my point. That you look at these pieces and you think, I have the arsenal to attack on the king side, and then you look at these pieces and he's like, well, I have arsenal to defend also. Plus, these bishops are actually looking the other way. They're not looking towards the king; they're looking towards the queen
Exactly.
side. And suddenly you realize that two of the four pieces that you think are going to do anything are doing nothing. And this knight is absolutely like not absolutely hopeless, but there's no squares. There's no squares to go to. This is defended thrice.
But c5 is such like just as a King's Indian player, like you just as white, if you're playing the King's Indian, you have to play this. You have to play c5. It's just like
And it
whether or
also
not there's a pawn on d6,
allows
there's
you
pawn
to
on
just
d6.
plonk a knight on d6,
And the
which
rook's on f7 for some reason.
and it's so such a monstrous knight suddenly when you put it here. And in fact, if you actually go here, you're also somewhat attacking this, which is definitely like, well guarded.
The more I look at it, the more like even if you don't play c5, white's okay. I mean, knight g6 is a big threat, and you're going to tunnel vision on it.
It's okay, but a little low on
Come
time.
on. And c5 is not a move you play when you're low on time. You tunnel vision on the king side, make sure you're not mated, and then play. Right.
And queen b3, I think again is top engineer maybe possible, right? That you can kind of
Well,
play.
queen b3, maybe you
Rook
shift your
h1
focus to like
comes in.
c5. It's a move. It's a move apparently.
It is a move, and the internet taking some well actually. Calculator still says a5
But knight
c6
g6.
is the
But
idea.
like
And
knight
knight g6 is since the recent move was knight
Knight g6, and let's assume he doesn't play c5. Knight g6,
Let's assume knight g6.
king g1 is the idea. But like no c5. Like he's not playing it, so he may not play it.
So he actually played it. No, he has played it.
He played
on the
c5?
board.
Oh.
Knight
Knight g6.
g6 is on the board.
King g1, and what's very interesting about this is the king's safe. The h file is where your play wanted to be, right? Your king's safe. And very commonly, of course, you have these king walks. And that's the weird one. It's like a king sidestep. But it's good. Like, you're never going to be able
It's
to double
not
on
bad.
the
The game's playable is what it has right now. But I don't know if King G1 is what he will end up playing. Very likely. I still think that there's something else that like Zakaria might find. You know, one of those like nasty bishop
But
moves
if
or
king
something.
g1, knight f4, I'm missing what.
But again,
what's the idea?
still C5 is the best move and gives you.
I guess nothing, right? Like, it doesn't. Okay, so let's play king g1.
Right? Okay, let's King G1.
The knight f4, I don't think is great. But it looks so good. Like, if you don't play c5, what's the move?
D2 is what. But you can assume he'll play bishop. I'm not sure he likes his bishops, right? I'm not sure.
And that knight's great. Why would you trade for that? I think like rook c1 or rook b1 is like an instant.
Right.
Queen d2.
He's played something, so
Okay.
there's been some development. Let's also hit this. Let's show the players and the
Knight
body
g6,
language.
g2.
And queen d2 is on the board.
g4 apparently the best move. Yeah, you don't have knight d2 square for the knights. You're still not playing c5. But once you don't play c5, it's hard to get it through. If you can get the bishop in, like bishop e6, maybe. Yeah, that's a move actually. Bishop e6, king g1, knight f4. When you've wasted a move or so, the computer starts to like black. But I still am. I'm hopeful about white's position. Just from a practical point of view, if I don't see the engine, I'm like, okay, like
Let's
both sides have what they want.
let's do this. Let's see what we have. So
But bishop e6 also threatens rook d8. It's like, come on, queen d2. And when I was in the 1984 candidate cycle, Michael Tao said that in the King's Indian, whenever he didn't have engines, but when he got older, he said when the engine says in the King's Indian that black is equal, that means black is better.
Black might be better actually because like all these problems was like one of the problems was this knight on d7, which is now really beautiful.
Exactly, bishop like gets
d6. Rook d1
okay, so no rook d8, sure.
But
But the point is
Black's king is cozy. Like he has 3 pieces,
which is why you have to play on the king
and
yeah.
3 minor pieces, 2 major pieces.
But you can still play on the queen side.
I mean, you can still play, and I think c5 is
Eventually-
probably, if you turn on the lines, I think c5 is still something that you should.
What's interesting is like essentially like okay, the position's okay because you've got everything you want in the King's Indian. You have every piece over there. But the thing is, like at the same time, you're forcing white to play on the queen side. Because what else is that going to do here? Like, what else can you do but play c5? I really don't see anything. I don't see why he would not play c5. Like, it's begging to be played. Like, you have to play it. Everything's coming through. King g1 doesn't even make sense to me. Well, I guess now there's knight g4, but you're not afraid of knight g4, bishop g4. It's begging to be played. Should have played it earlier, but it's still equal. But again, in the King's Indian, if the engine approves, usually the King's Indian player is very happy.
I think King G1 is what I would expect from Zachariah at this point.
Makes sense. And King g1's
right. I mean, you still have a game on your hand. It's just that now he's 2 minutes low on than Josh. Josh, the edited player, really can lift and coast. He just really needs to draw. He doesn't even have to like play this super hard. That's why
Black can't pushing for a win. And Black doesn't. Well, Black has to have some urgency because if you let me get c5, knight c4, it's not so simple. Right. And especially now because the rook on f7 it's not trapped, but it looks cramped.
Right. And the thing is also the queen needs to move out of the way, and even then doesn't have a lot of squares to move to. Right?
The rook can't go to f4. It can't go to f5. It can't go to f6 because g5's hanging.
But I think rook takes f3 may be an idea if at some point it does.
I see the engine right now. I think c5 is just as strong as it's been.
He puts the queen on d6, so he's bringing.
But you don't want to play the end game here.
The engine doesn't like it, and I feel
Black has no structural weakness besides e5, and
I think so. His psychological idea is that he's down on time, which is good 2 minutes. So he wants to like make it easy. And I think Black has played something else.
Queen f6. That makes sense though. It makes sense to me.
And what are you?
I mean, well, now the d6 square is gone for the knight. That's why queen d6 is not so good. I think the end game's okay, but queen f6 is an amazing move. This is a great move. Give that an exclamation point. Can you do that? Can you do that? It's an amazing positional move because now white's wasted a move. You keep the queens on the board, you have no risk. The d file is nothing for you. You have no control of the d file. It looks like you do, but you don't. e5 is holding. Everything's holding. Black can play knight g8 and h5. I mean, only he can't, but Zach's holding on. That's why this game's so intense.
Right. Zach's holding on with like.
Careful threat. Careful threat. G4 bishop. Oh no, the knight's on G6. Careful. I was thinking bishop H4.
I was thinking knight. Rook H6.
H6.
Bishop H6. Knight E5. And suddenly you're playing on something.
Are you? I mean, E5 is not.
You take it, right?
E5 is defended. Yeah.
But no, you take the rook. No, you take the knight on H6 first.
Okay.
So let's.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like A6. I would take here, you take back, I take here again. And then you take back, then you just lose the queen. This is nice skewer.
And I take on G6 because the rook's on H1.
The rook was sacked. But even then, I would still like to take, and I would like to put. So I would like to take here, and then I would like to put this.
Something about it feels pressure, right? Feels like there's like not enough concrete stuff. Though. I don't know. It's something to play for if you have no hope, I guess. But it's also a very complex tactic, right? It's like you're removing a defender that's not even really a defender of what you're looking at. I don't know. It's difficult. Bishop b2, king f1.
I mean, he has
your king's safer on e2.
He has to see that the bishop is attacked. What happened last game was also that he was playing an equalish game and he was holding, and he was putting pressure, and then suddenly just lost the piece.
The bishop on e6 is really good. Bishop f1 is also in the
queen d2.
Okay, but this is okay. The d6 square is there now. They're both. This is like okay. In the opening, there were some really concrete lines. This is not a bad game. This is a solid game. Queen d2. It just feels like you're admitting a mistake. I think Zachariah admits his mistakes too much. He's too humble of a chess player.
Right. Thing which also kind of like
it can be a good thing, but I think
so. The queen basically is time walk from d2 d6 then again back to d2.
It shouldn't have been in the first place. That's what's crazy.
Right. I don't know. And I also,
But anything can happen. Slow
and I
time.
think there is this chance of now seeing rook d7 some sort. So that rook's also
Yes,
free,
yes,
which
yes,
was
yes.
actually very, how do I say, like,
Oh, wait.
yeah.
Rook d8, queen c2, knight e2, queen e2, rook d1.
Let's do
Is
this.
c4
So
hanging?
rook d7 is what
Is c4
I
hanging? After this?
d7.
Queen anywhere, right? Probably c2. You take on e2, queen e2, rook d1. It's not hanging because you take with the knight, but this like rook d8 now, maybe even gg4. I mean, a lot of stuff looks pleasant for black. It may not be objectively, but because you take on e5 with the bishop, but like okay, so we don't blunder that. But like it makes sense. Like before, rook a8, it's a
I think it
safe
is
game,
something worth calculating for. Also, the time advantage is reduced to a minute now.
and it's extremely complicated. And like really, this is very bad for Zach, and this is why. Not that he's down on time; it's low time, and you're playing a King's Indian player. Something's going to pop up, and you have to be so alert because White has no threats. You're sitting around waiting for something to happen, and you can't chicken out, right? Like you can't sit around and do nothing. You're going to get made.
So we did calculate rook d7, and I think rook c2 is the move. He just has to play it quick now.
And
The more
and he has to
waits,
yeah, because Queen B2 I think blunders C4, right? Because you take on E2. Or oh, yeah, because then the knight has to Queen C2 is the right move. Queen B2 is there, I don't know, it's too late now, but you can also take rook D8. I think rook D8 is a very classy move. You have nothing on the F file. It looks like you do, but even if you get G4 through, I think the bishop on G3 is really nice. There's no way to kick it out, right? That's what I would think.
I'm only concerned with White's position is that let's say you like, so he takes on e2, queen takes back.
Yeah.
Okay, and
It's dry though. And E5 pawn's weak.
right.
The threat is bishop takes E5.
E5 is weak, and then there's also okay. So he takes.
Take with the queen, or you take with either. Take with.
Take
Oh,
with the
there's
knight.
rook D8.
Take with the knight.
But the knight's so good. No. The knight's great. And queen E2. Or queen C2, either one. Queen B3. No, okay. That's too much. But E5's hanging.
Okay, so that
Was queen A4 okay, hitting A7 and threatening bishop E5? Queen A4.
I don't like 24. It's too far off.
You're taking pawn zone. He has no attack, and E5's hanging. There's so much stuff hanging. I think. Wait, can we just look and see if that was the best move? Because I'd be very proud of myself. It does feel wrong though. That's the thing, but like it may objectively be right. Okay, knight F7, queen D1, rook D8, queen A4. Yes.
It's not giving me lands yet.
Yeah. Rook D8, queen A4.
24. Interesting.
He's playing knight G4, which is a hard move to play, and I think that's in low time. That's good. But Zach plays a lot of blitz, right? I don't know, probably not.
I don't know, but he's still taking some time here.
Now that rook H1, that's really awkward.
But there's ideas. There's ideas. That's
There's
the thing.
ideas, but like you have to.
Like you
I
got
guess
to get the queen
D1
there.
and D2 are very well controlled.
I
Rook
would-
on D8 is not super great,
I
but
would
knight
want to-
F7 defending E5.
See, I would want to put the knight on F1 and just not think about the rook even check it anymore.
But no. It's just white is okay. Like white has everything you need. Like queen C2 or queen B2, and you play for B. You have to play for something as white. You
I
can't sit
bet-
here.
Yeah, and I bet he's looking at rook H7 ideas, maybe.
No,
But there's nothing happening there, sadly. And he's
But he can't waste time looking at it. Come on,
he's
Zach.
down
Come
to a
on.
minute. He's down to a minute, which is bad. Because
But there's so many moves. You can play queen C2, queen B2, knight F1, right? I mean, that's okay.
is a move. And then you can also play C.
You know what's
still on the
funny?
cards.
No, it doesn't work. Now the H6 square is open for the queen. I was going to say king H2 and bring the rook back. The rook sucks there. It's not good. I don't like it.
Now we just let the pressure of the E5 square go. 48 seconds for Zachariah, and 2.5 minutes for
F3.
Jamal.
There's no issue with F3. G4. No. There's no issue. F3 instantly.
Still thinking?
Or queen C2 is also.
Queen
This is a
F3.
blunder.
F3.
G4. Is there some G4? I'm trying to think if there's some tactical issue. I guess we'll figure it out, right? We'll figure it out.
Take rook d2, just rook d2. Just rook happy on the 7th rank.
Maybe. Let's.
I mean,
looks quite good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Rook d2, knight f5. g4 apparently is also good, but e2. Yes, e4's hanging. There was no way to hold e4.
force hanging.
Okay, minutes though. I mean, really, happen. You.
And he takes that pawn.
Looks rough here. It looks difficult.
Yeah, that rook's not doing a lot right now. That's
yeah,
the
the rook.
part.
I thought this idea was just odd.
Okay.
Like it's creative, but I thought it was odd.
I don't think it's that idea that cost him the game in the long term. Maybe it was
I think
probably
he kind
not
of
playing c5.
It's c5, but also wasted so much time by not playing c5.
Right.
Like, and also this rook, like once everything's traded off, which Black had a very easy way to do.
This too changes.
King
At least
g8. He has to play quickly. He has 5 seconds. He has to make every movement. Like he can't just sit here and
up to play.
f3. He's just lashing out because he doesn't have any idea. That makes sense. I mean, it's complicated. Like when you're lost, you should have to play.
Right. You just play. You put your king on f2 after you take with the g pawn.
Yes.
Put your king on f2, and then you see what.
Take with the g pawn, queen g6. Queen g6, right?
Takes with the queen. And takes what?
But no matter what, it's a lost ending. I don't see what was the point of this.
He has 139 seconds and to 21 seconds for.
Yeah.
Which is
rough. Yeah, rough.
Very rough.
But Josh gets in time pressure, which is a good thing for him because he's like good at it. But also, you can.
And there's no like tactics or perpetual check or something. You don't
Queen
have
f3, knight f3. I think the ending's good. I literally think the ending is good. Like you have a weakness on e5 that he's looking at, but Josh wants to keep the queens on the board. Queen g6. Come on.
Right. Yes, he cannot. Yeah, so he should actually keep. Also because the time and also, but he's thinking too much now.
In this end game, like if you can't calculate in the end game, there are chances to swindle.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Queen g6, it's very hard.
I remember f3 from the first game today. F3, f4, which allowed rook h3.
Yeah, like come on. Yeah.
So okay, queen g6 been on the board. I think rook h2, rook h1, one of those. c5. Okay.
It's a little too late. Bishop.
Came.
Yeah, bishop d5. Knight takes, rook takes. e4. This must be a really, really nice move that moves him to think. It's a nice practical move to make him think. It's beautiful.
Yep, 4 seconds.
Queen f2. Come on, Zach. Okay, he probably made a move, right? He probably made a move. Right?
No, he's looking at the clock. He realizes.
Yeah, they won.
That's it. And there's handshakes.
Also,
I think they're just
he's
calculating at this point. Oh my lord. That was close. Do you want to summarize? I'll quickly go and
summarize. Sure. Where's your writing utensil? Where's your writing thing?
Oh no, I can't.